Now, with that, there was a lot of excitement, a lot of energy, and now we've got summer on our doorstep. A lot of events are returning to the city, and that also means here come the tourists. Joining me now live to talk about where we are in the tourism sector, Andrew Weir, Executive Vice President of Destination Development. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right, so let's begin. First, back up just a tad. This number is alarming. No doubt, every sector lost money during this pandemic. 2021 and 2020, $12.5 billion in economic activity. How does one recover from there?
Well, we're on the on-ramp, I would say, to recovery, but we've got a long way to go still. I mean, that $12 billion represents money that didn't enter our economy, that normally would have. When visitors come to our city, and they come from all over the world, typically, they spend money, and it's an export business. So that's money that didn't start the day in our economy, but it ends there and then continues to circulate and support jobs. So over the course of 2 years, with virtually no tourism, virtually no travel from international markets, that's the money that didn't enter our economy that usually does. And it shows you the power of what the visitor economy would typically contribute to a city like Toronto.
So here's an encouraging number, and thank you to your team for sharing this with us. When it comes to hotel occupancy, it's not the full picture, but it gives us just a little sneak peek. For the first time since the start of the pandemic, the city passed that 80% mark for hotel occupancy. So let's just put that in perspective. Compare that to 2021, 28%, and 2020, 11%. This is good news. It's not the whole picture, though, right?
No, it's a huge step back, though. It absolutely is. It's been driven, I would say, largely through most of the recovery we've seen so far has been driven by more domestic and leisure travel. So Toronto is very fortunate. We've got a very diversified visitor economy. We have business travel, we have leisure travel, we have domestic travel and international. And so far, we've seen some of that come back, mostly leisure and domestic. And that's what's been driving it. But over the last couple of weeks, we've started to see the return of things like major meetings. So, over the last 2 weeks, we've had the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada, which is a huge event, typically in March, moved into June this year and had over 17,000 people this year. So those kinds of numbers will really help drive. And it shows you just how powerful these foundational meetings and events are when they do come to the destination. Next week, we have the big Collision Tech Conference, 35,000 people from all around the world. A lot of Americans coming, a lot of people from across Canada, but a very global audience as well. So we'll see again that, we'll see people with lanyards all throughout the city. And that's important because those are people that, yes, they stay in a hotel, but they also eat in restaurants and take in some of the arts and culture and move around the city and explore and enjoy it. For many of them, it could be their first time in Toronto. So they're really going to dig in and explore and enjoy. And that's the power of these people visiting our city, spending time here, spending money here, and hopefully coming back again.
That's right. As we're looking at these visuals, I can't help but have a smile on my face. It is really nice to see the energy. I love seeing people walking around with cameras, right? Like asking for directions because the city gets vibrant again. I'm curious if you sort of take this as, day by day, or if you're setting some targets here. Is it too difficult to set sort of a number where you hope that we are at for tourism in the city of Toronto, or is it just still recovery?
Well, the benchmark always has been 2019. That was a high water mark. It turned out to have been a high water mark. We certainly had expected to continue to grow from there, but obviously a big pullback after that. So that's the high water mark. We're still some ways off from a 2019 level. Although we're at 80% now, our hotel occupancy for this particular week, again, driven by some unusually large meetings as well. We're still just over 50% for the year. And again, hotel occupancy is a measure of people in the city. It's a great illustration of those people may sleep in hotels, but they do a whole lot else when they're here. And that's important to recognize the full impact of those visitors. So there's still a long way to go. The international markets are still just starting to come back. China was our largest international market 3 years ago with over 300,000 visitors a year. And now that's still effectively zero with probably a couple of years to go before any meaningful recovery in some of those key Asian markets. So there's a ways to go. And a lot of the meetings, as we start to see meetings and conventions come back, many of those meetings book 3 and 5 years in advance. So the meetings that we're booking now, as we start to get back on people's radar again to book those events, we may not see those until 2026, 27. So there can be a long tail to this, but certainly the recent signs have been encouraging, and we see people on patios. And like you said, so Toronto, when you see people walking around with lanyards and a map looking a little lost, we hardly have to say this because it's who we are, but be nice to those visitors. They're important to us.
Absolutely. Andrew Weir, appreciate your time and glad we're doing this.